and Bill is the president of that. I've come to know Bill fairly well over the last 6 months. I think our federation didn't do much for quite a few years, and that's changed under Bill. Bill really cares about surface rights, and so that's become pretty obvious to me. So without further ado, Bill's going to be our main speaker tonight, so please welcome Bill Heidecker.
Thanks, everyone. First, let me know if I'm not getting loud enough here with you. Make sure you're getting it. Okay, so as Mark has stated, they've had a bit of a series here on the mature asset strategy, which is the province's strategy they've been working for, so allegedly to address all of the mature assets. Fundamental problem that we have is what they view as a mature asset and what they've defined as a mature asset really don't align. I think that's where the biggest discrepancy comes, and a lot of the problems arise from that. So tonight, my objective here is to provide everyone with some situational awareness of what's going on so that you can take action to protect yourselves, your land, and your community. And why is that? It's because I feel that the mature asset strategy is a strategy for industry, not for landowners or Albertans. And the government of Alberta is promising to double production in this province, and that's going to double the number of problems for you as landowners and rural Albertans. Some of the questions you should be asking yourself, and hopefully I can help you answer some of them tonight, is whether this mature asset strategy actually addresses any of the problems for landowners and rural Albertans, and whether and how the handling of the government of Alberta's handling of these legacy oil and gas issues impact the future of development. Basically, is there any credibility? Is there any social license for more development? And depending on how you answer those questions, whether what you as landowners and rural Albertans can do. To give you my opinion, this strategy does not solve the legacy issues for landowners nor Albertans. And unless these issues are addressed, there can be no consideration of increased production, pipelines, or carbon capture. Makes no sense. If we do that, we're simply adding on to the current problems. So today I'm going to run through some quick overview. What is a mature asset? What's the impact on landowners? What's Mr. Yeager's mature asset strategy all about? Touch on the cleanup obligations. Tell you a little bit of what we've done, what our vision actually is, and actions that I hope you can take to help support us and yourself, frankly. So what is a mature asset? There's been a lot of talk about this. I think a lot of people are assuming a mature asset is simply an oil well out in the country. You'd think it would have some specifications to it, but it's not. It's simply an asset that is no longer economically viable. In the report's definition, it talks a lot about what it could be or how you could define it. At the end of the day, there's no limits on the chronologically, production levels, geographically or geologically. Essentially just any asset that's no longer economical. That means any well today or in the future, drilled in the future, it will eventually be a mature asset. So therefore, any of the recommendations of this report impact everything in the past and in the future. That's important. So we're going to learn. At the end of the day, this report recommends lessening the protections that you have, not only for the old wells, but for anything new as well. What caused all these? The great increase in mature assets. If you listen to Mr. Yeager's yarn, it's all about the decline in commodity prices, the decline in production, unbearable fixed costs, and that, just so everybody here knows, that fixed costs in their mind is landowner compensation and municipal taxes. And then also they're feeling the changes in challenges in reclamations, in the sense that standards are too high and that landowners are too troublesome. The reality is, what's caused this mature asset crisis or problem is the lack of firm deadlines for cleanup, and also no cleanup funds being collected. Part of the problem I alluded to when I first started is that the definition or the problem has been defined as a problem of profitability for these old assets. So by framing the problem as profitability, it predisposes the solutions are industry-centric, all about how do we make these things profitable again. At the end of the day, a lot of them are never going to be profitable again. They're worn out, they're old, they should be put to bed. But at the end of the day, by having the problem cased or framed as profitability, it fails to address a lot of the other issues for other stakeholders, especially landowners, rural Albertans, and the taxpayer. So what are these issues that most landowners and rural Albertans are facing? Most of you guys in here are going to know this, but I'm going to run through it real quick. Dealing with old wells, abandoned or whatever stage or suspended, whatever stage they're in their life cycle. It's nothing new for landowners. We've been dealing with this for decades. We've had slow or no reclamation activity. Leases continually changing hands. This churn of some new owner and still no action on cleaning up. Weed control on the lease is an issue. Unpaid rent. The LPRT, especially, which used to be the Surface Rights Board, always undermining our costs and our time, so we can never get some actual justice and some fair hearings. And as well, ongoing inappropriate influence on the government of Alberta from the energy industry. And this is all over the province. There's wells, dead wells, depleted wells, half abandoned, whatever, all over the province. Everybody's being impacted. Hundreds of thousands of issues out right there on that map. So as in recent years, when commodity prices took a significant dive, and especially in central southern Alberta, where the gas market has taken an extremely hard hit, it's gotten worse because they've been even more strapped for cash. And they've also been given enough latitude. They started to get more and more aggressive, and we've started to experience more and more problems. So anything we experienced previous has just been amplified to the point where there's companies that are pushing for unilateral rent reductions through very aggressive methods. We even called out one of those companies in the mature asset meetings, and yet they continue to do it right through the sessions, which to me was just extremely insulting. The LPRT, or the Alberta Surface Rights Board, has been weaponized against landowners by these aggressive oil companies or energy companies. Whether it's threats that if you don't take their haircut on your lease payment, that they'll just automatically close those wells down, or that they're going to take you to the Surface Rights Board and you're going to be on the hook for their legal costs. So a lot of people buckled. Then we have a well site reduction pilot project, which is a pilot project for industry, not for landowners, where they're going to be able to reduce the footprint of the lease. Thankfully, that pilot project seems to be dying, and hopefully it won't be renewed. We've got problems with fraud in the reclamation process. More and more orphan wells, and then worse are the zombie wells, where the wells are not yet put into the orphan well fund. But even worse, there's no one that is at the company more because it's defunct or it's on life support. Nobody's answering the phone. Those are even harder to deal with when you have problems. Again, the weed control issue is getting worse and worse. And I'm not sure how many people know, but you can be charged with criminal offense for entering the lease even though it's on your land under the Critical Infrastructure Act. So now you're in a catch-22 where you've got weeds on the lease. The county won't help you. They'll probably give you a weed notice. You can't contact the oil company because they're defunct and you're not allowed to go in there. So it's a terrible situation. And those weeds are going to cause you a great deal of harm, especially if you're an organic farmer, raising seed stock, what have you. Again, we got more questionable decisions coming out of the AUC, the AER, the LPRT. Nothing seems to ever be in our favor. And then on top of all this, we've got new well site activities that have not been explored and well vetted as far as what are the regulations should be, educating the landowner, things like Bitcoin mining and brine mining. End of the day, it's all more stress on the landowner, more cost, more imposition, and more aggravation. And on top of that, we've got these issues arising from these mature assets that are also impacting people off the farm. So the municipalities aren't getting their taxes paid. We've got certain large gas companies in this province that are trying to undermine the gas co-ops, which will have an extremely negative impact on some of these co-ops because they've managed to take some of the top burners away from their co-op. It's quite likely that some of them may well fold. That's going to be a huge negative impact on those communities. We've also got taxpayer dollars going out the door to fund the Section 36 payments, which will continue to increase as more and more of these companies roll into the orphan well fund. And it takes so long for them to get cleaned up. They're gonna be lingering in there for 10, 20 years at the rate we're going. Big problem with all this is a lot of these problems could have been avoided or addressed under the current regulations, but there's been a lack of desire to enforce these regulations. So Mr. Yeager's mature asset strategy. We were invited just over a year ago to participate in this mature asset strategy. We felt that it would be something that we'd obviously, as a federation, we should partake in, as we felt it was a sign that the government was actually going to finally get interested and start to respond to some of our concerns. So we had some optimism in the sense that maybe there'd be possibly some resolution. It had connection right to the Premier's office with Mr. Yeager, and the fact that he had both political ties and oil patch ties, and was being pitched as a comprehensive multi-stakeholder review of numerous complex interconnected issues. So it sounded good. End of the day, it was an incredible disappointment. We're having weakening reclamation standards. In our mind, it's going to let industry off the hook, and taxpayers may well be footing the bill, whether it's all of it or just more of it. We'll see what comes to pass. But in my opinion, mature asset strategy is nothing but an official pathway for industry to legislatively reduce their cleanup obligations. So how or why was it a problem? Why didn't it work? Well, in my opinion, and some of the other individuals that were in the meetings, it seems like there was a predetermined outcome, and we were only there to get a rubber stamp to say that there was involvement of landowners, or there was an involvement of the municipalities. The process itself, if it was for a true stakeholder engagement, I'd say it was anything but that. There was no public consultation. It was invite only. We worked in isolated, siloed working groups. There were 6 different working groups. We happened to be in group 1. We were only invited to 2 of the groups, yet all 6 impact landowners. And I think the kicker, the most important part that shows it was a failure, is that when the shareholders shared their recommendations, those recommendations went into it was like a one-way mirror. They went to Mr. Yeager, nothing came back. So all the people in our group, we all put them in. We have no idea what CAP said. We have no idea what EPAC said. We don't know. It was ridiculous. How are you going to have a shareholder review if you don't see what the other or stakeholder review if you don't see what other stakeholders are recommending? I mean, it's a farce. So, because that annoyed me so much, I made sure we forwarded our recommendations to everyone. And then when it gets to the actual group discussion of these recommendations, it didn't even help. It didn't even happen. There was like a few minutes, glance over a few high-level items. That was it. Again, you can't have a discussion about the different stakeholders' recommendations if you don't even see them. So at the end of the day, I feel the industry's concerns were prioritized and landowner issues were marginalized. And throughout the whole thing, especially in our working group 1, there seemed to be this underlying narrative that industry's problem was unforeseeable, which if anyone here's a farmer, we work in a commodities and we work in a renewable commodity. And we know you're going to have times of low production and low prices. We're talking about people that are working in a depletion or an extraction industry and a commodity. They know bloody well that someday the prices are going to be low when they have no production. So it's hard to feel sorry for them, to be honest. And that they were looking for financial consideration from both landowners and municipalities. We went in, the message was that we as landowners and the municipalities should be willing to take a haircut to save these guys so that they could keep on with jobs in the community and what have you. That's ridiculous. We pushed back hard on that. We weren't about to take a haircut. We didn't participate when prices were high because we're not a shareholder. We aren't a joint venture partner. All we are is getting compensated as landowners for our loss of use and the adverse effect of having these wells. That's not something we're going to entertain. So we said no to any sort of financial consideration. So I'm not sure how many of you actually looked or read through this mature asset strategy, but there's 20 recommendations. Some of the most concerning ones are for us, the reduction of reclamation standards, especially for salts and for gas venting, This change from an insurance instead of a warranty for post-reclamation. Keep in mind, the reason that we have a warranty for reclamation was that years ago, there was basically an agreement where we agreed to have desk audits at the AER for reclamation certificates if we had a warranty for 25 years. So now they want to retrade that away from us with some sort of insurance. Why would we even entertain that thought? There's a recommendation to shift responsibility to professionals, reclamation professionals in the reclamation process. Except a big part of the problem we have right now in the reclamation process is a lack of credibility with those exact same professionals. How can we agree to having more of these same professionals taking a greater role in the reclamation process? It can't happen. There's been a lot of talk about this creation of Closer Co. and Harvest Co. for these special purpose entities. Vitor gave some more information about that when he was here, but still there's not enough information to actually discern what that means and what that impact is going to have on the taxpayer, who's going to end up ultimately owning or paying the bill on a lot of these. How you can actually recommend these go and to be implemented, which is what was in the Premier's mandate letter last week, is really surprising to me. There's also some issues with gas gathering. I touched on that about the negative impacts on the gas co-ops. So, and as I noted before, the recommendations aren't restricted to only mature assets, because what is a mature asset is only defined as an unprofitable well. So anything drilled today will get the same consideration. So we're basically, take salts, for example. We're basically lowering the hurdle for them on wells drilled today. When given technology and environmental expectations, you would think if anything, the restrictions should be going up rather than down. But we're going to reduce it instead. So talking about cleanup obligations. In Alberta, and I believe in most jurisdictions, the theme is that the polluter pays. Polluter pay principle has been picked up a lot in the media and whatnot. It's the law. If you make the mess, you clean it up. From a more specific example or view or point of view from a landowner, we let these people on the land with the expectation that they're going to return it to us as it was. So they're going to return it with extra salts and whatnot. Problem is, has been touched on a lot, there's no deadlines, there's no back end date for having these things cleaned up. There's no security collected. Few consequences if you ignore it. And now we've got a massive liability, 60 to 130 billion, depending on what the number, whose calculations you want to believe. But at the end of the day, it's a huge number. And that being the single biggest financial issue for the taxpayer. But mature asset strategy solution is to lessen the requirements rather than make these guys pay. The solution is to make it easier for them to get the reclamation certificates. As far as I'm concerned, that's a breach of the contract that every one of us signed with if you actually are a landowner. So if they're going to breach the contract, can we breach the contract as well and kick their butts off there? That's what I would think, but that's not how things are working. As I noted, all these recommendations will apply to past, present, and future wells. So how, without firm regulations to ensure cleanup on current and future wells, can the government of Alberta be considering more development pipelines or carbon capture? You as a landowner, do you want to have more wells if the protections you got or you get are actually being reduced? No, you don't. Landowners are the hosts, as are the communities, and our guests are not being good guests. Let's just put it that way. It's welching on the deal, frankly. Current status. I'm annoyed. Hopefully that's not showing too much, but I'm really annoyed with where we're at right now. We've been extremely polite. We've been firm, but we've been extremely polite and respectful of the system and of the politicians and the office of the Premier. We pushed back throughout the mature asset strategy meetings, saying that we are not going to be, entertaining any sort of haircuts on our compensation. We backed municipalities, but haircuts on their taxes. And I think we've done a good job of that, at least in the sense that, as Mr. Yeager and Vitor mentioned at the meeting here, that the implementation of the mature asset strategy is being pushed back to spring. We've also made presentations to producer groups and others just to bring awareness up, and we'll continue to do that. We've had some discussions with the Premier. We also sent a letter to the Premier and various ministers outlining specifically what we did like with mature asset strategy. And I'll make sure Mark can get a copy of that to anyone who wants that. One of the key things we did in that was we listed a very long list of issues that we've experienced. And of the 20 issues, and believe me, there's multiple sub-issues of them, there's only 3 that are possibly addressed by the mature asset strategy. 17 are not. That'll tell you why you as a landowner or a community individual should not be supporting this. It does not solve our problems. In fact, it potentially makes our situation worse. The 3 that might be addressed, possibly weeds, but I'm not going to pat anybody on the back for that because that's been an issue for close to a decade. There's been multiple solutions. There's been multiple solutions to that problem on the table many times, and they've never been completed. The Surface Rights Board changes or potential reincarnation of the Surface Rights Board. We had been pushing for review of that previously. There was an MNP LPRT review, so the consulting firm was asked to review situation and the process of LPRT. So that was already in play before the mature asset strategy showed up. And maybe municipal taxes, but again, that's another one that could have been and should have been fixed multiple times over. So in my mind, these three items are really just barely some crumbs thrown our way to keep us happy. Basically a quid pro quo, we'll take that and we'll be quiet as they get away with this other stuff. In my opinion, I don't accept that. Hopefully you guys agree. And as I noted, some of the recommendations actually makes the situation worse. Now, as I noted, there was an indication last meeting that the mature asset strategy is going to be pushed into the spring. But here's what really gets me fired up. In the last week or two, what do we have? We have a commitment of taxpayer dollars to go back a new pipeline. What does a new pipeline mean? That means more wells, more problems for us. There's a nonstop promotion of this responsible energy narrative. In my mind, that's a complete farce. From any landowner, municipality, or rural Albertan, that is not their experience. What I'm getting told by most landowners is either never again or FOGO. And FOGO, if you don't know what that means, there's an off and a get off. Okay? So that's what it is. Most people are fed up. Just get off. We're done with you people. Right? And we've got this responsible, and why is it this promotion of this responsible energy narrative? It's because there's this hard press on the feds for a new pipeline. Okay. What isn't that for landowners? It's just going to be doubling our problems. Okay. And then last week, or was it the week before? Whatever. There's a commitment in the Premier's mandate letter to Brian Jean, the minister, to implement the mature asset strategy. That's in the mandate letter. That's what she's laying out for him to get done this year. And there's not a single reference in that mandate letter or any of the rhetoric coming out of CAP, the minister's office, Center of Energy, about repairing relations with landowners or getting our house in order, which is what they should be doing. Not a peep. To me, it tells you where we rank on this. All of this. It's very telling. All they want is to get double production, get this oil out of the ground, get it to market, and to hell with the landowner and the rural Albertan. And I'm pissed off. Like, honestly, I'm so pissed. This last week, it's got me fired up. I find it telling, insulting, and extremely hypocritical. The other thing that happened just last week, the LPRT ignored the abatement decision. So if there's any landowners in here getting your Section 36 payments, the LPRT took it upon themselves to cut the landowner's payment in the Section 36 application, saying that there is no adverse effect. Therefore, because the well is being reclaimed, so there's no adverse effect. So I think it was about an 80% reduction. It's outrageous. It flies in the face of the Lexman the Abatement versus Lexman hearing, which landowners spent tens of thousands of dollars on, 2 years ago? Took us, 3 years to fight it? And all of a sudden the LPRT is pissing in our face. Thank you, government of Alberta. Good job. So, Let's talk about the hypocrisy. That's the start of it. These guys want to reduce the restrictions on gas venting. Yet at the same time, we've got all this fracking going on. So on one hand, they tell us they can't stop the gas coming out of the vent, or the vent, they can't stop the wells from venting. Yet you would think that if they can't stop it, your first thing to do would be to quit drilling more holes. But rather than that, they spend all this money and technology and investment and knowledge to drill deeper holes farther. They can run a horizontal well, like 9-10 kilometers away now, with all that expertise. Yet they can't spend $1 or $2 to figure out how to properly plug these wells. I don't buy it. Take it a step further, to spend all this money on fracking and high pressure breaking up the formation. What is that doing to these other wells that may be venting already? Is that going to make it worse? Those are the kind of things that I start thinking about. Worst case though, they say on one hand, they can't properly plug these wells, but they want to trust us and have all these carbon capture wells and pumping carbon down into formations. So which is it? Can you plug the damn things or not? And given the track record, I'm having a hard time believing them on any of this. More hypocrisy, salt contamination. We're going to lower the requirements for reclamation for salts. So that means you're going to have more salts. Well, one, there's an issue where, depending on how much they lower, it might screw up your ability to get a mortgage on that. I've actually got a phone call with a banker tomorrow about that exact issue. But we want to lower the reduction, or we want to reduce the requirements for salt, but yet we're promoting bringing brine to surface, which is salts, to mine lithium. Okay, so these guys manage to the minimum. You lower anything, that's where these guys, that's their target. It's about here, and then maybe 10% less, because that's about where they know they're not going to get in trouble. That's been my experience. Some more hypocrisy. They force the renewable guys to put up collateral. Yet these guys, no. So the decline rate on solar is about this, 2% per year, the panels degrade. Maybe with wind, maybe it's probably about the same because there might be some more downtime, maintenance as they get older. But this or this. Your oil or gas wells, your decline is like this. And those are the guys that get the break and don't have to put up any collateral. And on top of that, we've seen their track record for shuffling these from strong hands to weaker and weaker hands to basically nothing but some guy in the garage with no intention of ever cleaning the shit up. Completely hypocritical. Completely. And then there's these accusations of all these injustices that the feds have done on Alberta. And there's 9 different acts or something they want repealed. Okay. I doubt I'm going to get many fans, and I'm not a fan of the previous prime minister. But it is incredibly hypocritical to be pissing and moaning constantly about how bad we've been treated or Alberta's been treated. Yet the treatment to landowners and rural Albertans by the province and by the government of Alberta, I'd say it's equally bad. And those are the people who put the current government in power. Landowners, rural Albertans, those who vote. Those are the people that they make governments. Oil companies don't vote. They don't make a government. Yet it's rural Albertans and landowners who are being extremely disrespected. And then we've got this arbitrary Grey Cup deadline for a decision from the feds, is what the Premier's been pushing. Should we be putting a Grey Cup deadline on having some of our issues resolved?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. So what can we conclude? These are the things that I conclude. I would expect you guys do your research. You can ask. I mean, I can give you some phone numbers of the people, other people who are in these meetings with me. If you don't think that I'm, relaying this information accurately, but will mature asset strategy be stopped? I have a bad feeling it's not. Track record with this government has been to have some talk and still do whatever they want to do anyway. So all we can do, we can only judge people by their actions. And at this point in time, I would say this is going through. So if you guys actually care about this, I strongly suggest taking some action. And I've got some recommendations at the end. In my mind, I don't see the industry of having any intention of cleaning up their mess. They're putting all sorts of pressure on the government to get considerations to make it easier. I don't see that stopping. right? You guys need to make your own decisions, connect your own dots, and then you need to take action. Further, I see absolutely zero respect for the taxpayer at any level by industry. They're taking advantage at the municipal level, provincial level, and now they want massive taxpayer money to go into carbon capture and storage, which is one, unproven, and two, even if it was proven, there's no track record, there's no credibility, there's no social license left for these clowns. And if you want to be more in the goodwill that they used to have 20, 30 years ago, landowners and oil companies used to be shoulder to shoulder. That's gone. The goodwill has been harvested by companies. I'm not going to start naming companies. That goodwill has been harvested. Landowners, in my experience, are done with the oil companies. I conclude that without any sort of commitment to the legacy issues, how can any Albertan expect new developments? So I'm talking now with the fracking, brine mining, Bitcoin, data centers to be handled any better. And there's a lot of new issues with some of those. As I basically alluded to, the oil and gas sector, it's turned into a complete disaster for landowners and Albertans. Yeager's referenced, last month, he called it what, a steaming pile of shit? Okay, well, he had part of that right, and that was the feces. It's a mountain, and they are adding to it. It's only going to get worse with these current things that they're bringing up. There's massive issues with, is anybody here from Panoka or that area? Okay, so is there not some serious issues with the fracking and the use of fresh water in that area? Right by our house. Can any of us as landowners get access to that same fresh water for irrigation? No chance in hell. But we're gonna pump it down a hole, destroy it, never be back in the water cycle again. That's good management, right? Yeah. Brilliant. So we've got these current issues like the fresh water and the fracking. These fracking jobs, these big wells now, these aren't your grandpa's old well that come and they put one hole and they're there for what? 3, 4 weeks in the old days?
Maybe a week,
What?
maybe a week or so.
Okay, well now I'm telling we're putting what, upwards of 8, a dozen wells in one spot, drilling for upwards of what, a year and a half? That's a massive industrial site out in the country. Regulations haven't kept up with that. And that's a huge imposition on the neighbors and the community. None of that's being kept. Has anybody invited any of you to conversations to update our regulations as we improve and enhance the technology? No, nobody's called you. We've got all these energy adjacent activities, lithium brine mining, Bitcoin, data centers. What about all the implications of those? What is the water usage of the data center? That's my understanding. Has there been any consultation with anyone on any of these issues? Bitcoin mining, that's important. Because it makes, how much noise do those things make? What, the one in Stadler, apparently the guy put, I think it was 10 gensets out in this guy's field, Bitcoin mining. Did he sign up for that? I don't think, when I signed up for a well, I expected the oil come out of it, not in 10 years for it to be Bitcoin. As you as a landowner, should you have a chance to agree to whether it's going to have a change in use? I would think so. I'd expect that. And I'd also expect that to be a new taking, right? But no, we're just gonna repurpose this stuff. We maybe, your father, your grandfather might have signed on this at least 40 years ago. You might be looking for it to finally be gone. Now we're gonna put brine mining on it. What do you know about brine mining? Nothing. You would think there would be some education, some consultation. Let's talk to the counties about what sort of regulations they need to modify for all these new things. Has there been any of that? But we're gonna implement this stuff in the spring. That's what Mr. Jane's mandate has been. Who thinks that's intelligent? I see no hands. Thank you. So is there a comprehensive coordinated strategy, any of this? I don't see it. Am I missing something? Anyone? No.
Behind closed doors is a comprehensive coordinated strategy.
Yeah, well, so here's the problem. The Minister of Energy, his primary responsibility is to developing energy for Albertans, for the greater good. But it seems to me he's wearing the uniform of industry, right?
So is our environment.
Well, it'll be a lengthy list if we start down that path. So yeah, I'm pissed. Here's how it should work. We should have a vision where there's an environment in this province where landowners and communities are actually willing hosts to energy development. That's the way it used to be, right? That's been squandered. The goodwill's been burnt up by these guys. The way you can know you get there, you've got a guiding objective where we can actually reach a point where the description or where the use of descriptors such as ethical, responsible, and world-class are actually factually accurate and not just industry and government Alberta propaganda, which is what it is right now. And that's friggin' disgusting. Am I wrong? No. Keep in mind, I'm a volunteer, as is everyone, Mark, Carl, the whole Federation's a volunteer. I've wasted, as has Mark, all our other people, countless hours on this. And we're going up against people who are paid by your taxpayer dollar. Does that chap your ass? Chaps mine. I'm getting sick of this. I've told many people quietly that when we lose patience, it's not some sort of tactical, political BS behind the scenes. No, where it's just gonna be like carpet bombing and everybody's gonna get hurt. Like landowners need to push back and push back hard. It's ridiculous. How to reach our vision? I'm not even gonna go into this because this is all like airy-fairy stuff. Like you should actually engage with stakeholders. I mean, we might as well talk about the tooth fairy right now, right? Like it's not happening, but this is how we would do it if we actually had any intention to do it. But yeah, engage with stakeholders, do it right, make a strategy. My conclusion, honest solutions are the prerequisite for future energy development. Oil and gas must clean up their mess. We need to strengthen and enforce cleanup and closure rules. We shouldn't be adding to the existing problem. Pipelines, whether it's hydrocarbon or CO2, should not be adding more risk while reducing our protections. Repurposing old well sites, we don't want it. We don't want more hardship and headaches imposed on landowners. Renewables, hopefully they don't repeat the mistakes of the oil and gas guys. What can you do? This is like the half of the list. You need to do something. And I give everybody here a great deal of credit for coming out. Number one, contact your constituency association, tell them this is ridiculous, and tell them you're never donating again. That's number one, because here's the thing. The government of Alberta is listening to the big dollar energy sector. The only leverage we have, is the vote. We vote. We need to make sure you people tell the politicians what your intentions are come next election, and even prior to that. I would think that if you came and you're already concerned, some of the information I've given you, hopefully it pushes you to the point where you do that. Attend the legislature, get invited by your MLA or someone, get in there and make your voice heard. What I really need, I need the phone number and contact for Don Farrell at the Major Projects Office. Anybody has any contacts or way of getting that? Get it to me. You guys should be contacting everyone and everyone. Contact your MPs. Say this is nonsense. What are the feds even thinking about by considering the pressure of having another pipeline and more development in this province? Get get their house in order in Alberta first, and maybe consider it. And I'm gonna point one thing out, because I probably didn't say this first. I'm a rancher. I drove here in a diesel truck. We burn a lot of diesel to feed the cows, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I vote on the right end of the spectrum. So this is coming from someone who's sick of the BS coming out of this UCP government. And that's where it's coming from. So, the top things else you can do, get a hold of your constituency association and say this is BS, stop it, right? Because one, that's actually you're actually gonna be able to get that person on the phone. Your ability to get an MLA or an MP on the phone is pretty unlikely, but if you've got the contacts, do it, right? I would rally your producer groups, if you're part of the canola growers or whoever, make sure you let them know these are problems, they're gonna hurt you. Posting photos that counter this responsible energy nonsense is a huge thing. If you've got photos of the crap wells on your property and the fact they haven't paid rent or taxes, when you see some post about Brian Jean about all these great jobs and all this investment that we're missing out on, Post a picture of a well and say, this is not what we want. Again, I'm not against, and I don't want, if there's anyone here from the energy ministry, paint me after the fact as being a, some sort of, you know, crazy beatnik hippie or something. Like I say, I'm on the right end, center right end of the political spectrum, burn a lot of diesel, I need this stuff, but it has to be done right. We expect as landowners that we should be treated properly. We shouldn't be at the end of a deal that people are welching on. That's just not acceptable. So when you get a hold of these guys, I think the message has to be, get your house in order. No cleanup, no pipeline. That's the message has to be. And it really, really annoys me that we've been backed into a corner. Why have to come to a meeting like this when there's representatives of the ministry here, and this is what I have to tell you need to do. I can only do so much pushing back politely. You guys need to like pick it up, make some phone calls. Say, shake some stuff.